Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We got a great show planned for you today. Kyle is back for his final time in the chair this week, at least. How's it been for you?
So it's been great. Again, I want to thank everybody for putting up with me. I know that the way these shows work, everybody loves Saagar and everybody loves Krystal, and so when somebody sort of gets in the middle of that, it feels like, whoa, 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 whoa. And listen, I'm not blaming them, because I know for my show, too, if somebody sat in my chair, people would be like, you're not Kyle. Get out of here.
That would be really weird.
That would be incredibly weird.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for putting up with me. I really tried so hard on the second show to reel it in with the cursing.
Yeah.
And I succeeded in rolling it back a little bit, but still when I watched some of it back, I was like, why do I keep cursing? So I'm trying to set a hard limit. The hard limit, I'm going to cap myself at like 5 curses maximum, and you can't do more than 1 per segment.
Okay, but you don't want it to get in your head too much either, because you just got to be like in the conversation and let Krystal, it flow too.
I swear to you, I was really trying, and I was only able to cut it back like a little bit. And I was trying hard. I was almost saying to myself regularly, like, don't curse, don't curse, don't curse, don't curse, don't curse, and it would just flow out. And it's tough. I don't know why. I mean, I have issues. But anyway, if you want to see the cursing and a lot more, then you guys can check out my show, Secular Talk on YouTube.
I was just going to say, there's a story that broke about Hunter Biden that broke after we'd planned this show about, he says another of his laptops was stolen. There's some other details there, rather salacious, that we're not going to be able to get to on this show, but you're going to talk about in your show. So if you guys want all of the Hunter Biden content that you crave, definitely go over to Secular Talk, check that out. And while you're there, make sure you hit subscribe, because you don't want to miss any of the things that the brilliant Kyle Kulinski has to say.
You're very sweet for saying that. We were going to, and we wanted to cover it here, but like Krystal said, we already finished all the preparation. We already got all the videos ready. Everybody in the control room got all the graphics ready. So it was a little too late, but like she just said, we're going to cover it on my show. It should be up there at some point today, so enjoy.
Yeah, so in this show today, we got details on Cuomo resigned. A lot has happened, actually, since we last talked. Cuomo resigned, the infrastructure package passed, the reconciliation budget process has commenced with the vote in the Senate. Rand Paul was banned from YouTube. Media's putting out all kinds of like really unfortunate COVID misinformation that we want to correct the record on. We also have some fun comments from comedian Bill Burr, who really went after Ron DeSantis in a very eye-catching way. And of course, our monologues, David Sirota is going to be in. He's got a new piece, a very thoughtful new piece on the Obama administration and their legacy in particular on climate. So in the wake of that UN climate report, we definitely want to talk to him about that. But we wanted to start with that bombshell news that Andrew Cuomo did, in fact, decide to step down as governor of New York.
That's right. So Andrew Cuomo is out as New York governor. He resigned. It's effective in 14 days. So go ahead and throw that up there, guys. The first graphic here, the Ross Barkan tweets. Barkan, however you say it.
I think it's
official. Andrew Cuomo is resigning as governor of New York. He says his resignation is effective in 14 days. Kathy Hochul, in 14 days, will be New York's first female governor. Andrew Cuomo resigned ultimately because he would be impeached and convicted, removed from the government in disgrace. Now he resigns in disgrace. He joins Eliot Spitzer as the second New York governor in the last 13 years to resign from office.
Yikes.
When Andrew Cuomo dies, the first line of his front page New York Times obituary will mention that he resigned from office in disgrace. Andrew Cuomo will not serve a full 12 years as governor, failing to match the tenure of his father, Mario Cuomo. That's how we say it in New York, Mario, not Mario. A lot of people say Mario.
Your people.
Mario Cuomo.
You're
That's
here
how we
to
say
defend
it in New York.
Cuomo today based on your Italian heritage, right?
I have no choice. You're Italian-American. Hey, come on. He just wanted to touch some people. No big deal. All right, so there's a lot to say about this. I just want to get your initial thoughts on what happened there.
Obviously, this was a situation where the walls actually were closing in.
That's right, yeah.
Unlike the, persistent, which are the walls are closing in, the next shoe is going to drop, all that stuff. He saw the writing on the wall that he was going to get impeached. And so he was going to be forced out regardless. He lost the support of literally everybody, including Joe Biden, who had been kind of a holdout and was taking a wait-and-see approach. His top aide, Melissa DeRosa, had resigned. Some of the reporting says that was a real gut punch. I mean, she was one who was there, like, basically backing him up and helping him to smear the women and being the enforcer and all of that. So I think that he saw this as the best way for him to go out on his own terms. And frankly, and this is other people are speculating this too, I think he believes that maybe if he goes out this way, there's a possibility of a comeback down the road. Whether or not that's the case remains to be seen, but memories are very short, so I wouldn't rule it out. The other thing that I would say, this is a point Marianne Williamson made, which I think is really important, is, this guy was challenged twice in a Democratic primary by Zephyr Teachout and Cynthia Nixon, who are both treated as hysterical and crazy and fringe lunatics, et cetera, et cetera. And there were even tweets during, when Cuomo was celebrated last year for his quote unquote COVID leadership, which of course turned out to be abysmal and abhorrent, tweets about we're so lucky we ended up with Andrew Cuomo. We could have had Cynthia Nixon. How terrible would that have been? Hashtag experience matters or whatever. So I also think those women deserve a lot of credit for standing up to this guy before it was cool, because we knew for a long time that he was a bad leader, an asshole, a bully, abusive, all that stuff. None of this has been a secret. It's just finally now those chickens came home to roost.
That's right. So let me just say, pat myself on the back a little bit here because I voted for both of those women.
Good job.
So a little bit ahead there, but it wasn't too hard to tell that Cuomo was kind of abysmal in a number of ways. And just to underline one of the points you made there, that is why he did it. The only reason he resigned is because they absolutely had the votes to impeach him and to force him to resign.
Yeah.
So he got ahead of it. This way it's a shorter news cycle. It's not dragged out. And it looks like New York might move ahead with impeaching him anyway, even though he's out of office, which is, kind of interesting and worth mentioning.
Didn't know that.
So, in his resignation video, he keeps going back and forth, Krystal, between I didn't do it, this is a witch hunt, I'm just Italian and handsy, and this is what we do in our culture. He says that half the time, and then the other half the time he says, well, I did it, and I learned from it, and I apologize. So he's got this contradictory message, and when you get specific, when you go, case by case, what he does is ignores or swats aside the worst allegations, and he thinks the weaker allegations where maybe it is just old school affection, those are the ones that he sort of harps away on and hones in on. And he also said in his resignation speech, policy is done on Twitter now. And as somebody pointed out on Twitter, they said this is effectively like him blaming cancel culture for, having to step down. The story got big on Twitter.
Incredibly thorough Attorney General report from a fellow Democrat.
Yes.
Who was previously a supporter of yours.
That's exactly right. So it's also disingenuous. He also was pretending like he was being altruistic in his resignation speech. I'm doing this for the people of New York because I care so much about the people of New York. And it's dude, reel it in. Everybody can see through what you're doing here. Now, he's also going to potentially face criminal charges.
That's right. From a couple of these women.
And now there are more women coming out even after the fact.
Yeah.
Even at this late date now, there are more women coming out. So, he's in a lot of trouble. Now, you mentioned Biden before. I want to go ahead and show this video of Biden reacting.
If I may, ironically, one of the Democrats through the years that you spoke with about infrastructure the most was Andrew Cuomo, who is resigning, who announced he's resigning today. You had traveled New York with him when you were vice president to the launch of the reconstruction of LaGuardia. He was someone who supported your campaign early on. No, you called on him to resign. No, you condemned the alleged behavior. But you're someone who spends a lot of time with mayors and governors. How would you assess his 10 and a half years as governor of the state?
In terms of his personal behavior or what he's done as a governor?
What he's done as a governor.
I thought he's done a hell of a job. And, both on everything from access to voting to infrastructure, the whole range of things. That's why it's so sad.
So he's done a hell of a job, Krystal. That's what he said. Now, I will say there was a point in time where you could have made that argument because he did get $15 minimum wage in New York, and he did get some watered-down semblance of a free college bill.
Even those, after being pressured for years and resisting calls from activists to do those things, finally when it's dramatically publicly popular and there's no risk to it, he accedes to what activists have been pushing him to do for years and then takes all the credit. So even on those ones, I give him half a cookie.
Right, and not only that, but Biden mentioned infrastructure there, and as we've learned from previous reporting, he actually did a terrible job in some ways. They they changed the name of what's called the Tappan Zee Bridge in New York to the Mario Cuomo Bridge. And so people were like, hey, that's a little weird. You know, you're the governor's son, you're going to, be involved in changing the name to your dad's name. So right up front, that's weird. But also there was a scandal where the bolts that they used on that bridge were failing and weren't correct.
Cool.
And they tried to cover it up.
Cool.
And so if you want to talk about infrastructure, you can't talk about infrastructure without bringing up that story. Even on infrastructure.
He was a failure.
That's right.
No, I mean, this is part of what irritates me is that there's still this narrative of like, well, he was a great governor. Totally understandable that the media lionized him, during COVID and all of that. It's just, it's just the sexual harassment stuff can't stand. When in fact, I mean, in some ways, all of the routine, disgusting, inexcusable harassment was in some ways like the least of the terrible things that he did.
Oh,
I mean, the nursing home
oh my
decisions,
God.
which
should be in prison,
which killed a lot of elderly citizens based on his decision making. I mean, that just is what it is. And look, I do want to say, and I always say this, it was the beginning of the pandemic. People were making a lot of decisions fast. But then, even after he makes this terrible decision to put COVID positive elderly people back in nursing homes, which turned into, some of the worst sites in terms of disease and ultimately death, then they covered up the numbers. And this is another thing, like that report was already out there. Letitia James, AG, a Democrat who previously had been Cuomo's supporter, had already done that investigation, which showed that he dramatically undercounted the nursing home deaths. Now we're learning that it looks like they dramatically undercounted overall deaths in the state of New York, passed a law that was written by industry lobbyists to protect nursing home executives from any sort of liability for any, terrible or abhorrent or negligent decision making. So to make the case on any level that this guy was a good governor outside of just the most surface, shallow, performative metrics, like you gave a good press conference that you got an Emmy for. Let's not forget that. That was a ridiculous event as well. Like, it's just absurd. And I actually do think that this plays into why he decided to go ahead and resign. Because if he protects that narrative, that it was just, he's a little too handsy with people, a little old school, then that helps and everybody forgets about the nursing home deaths, forgets about writing the book, the $5 million advance book with state resources, the VIP treatment for his brother and everybody else, forgets about all of that stuff and only remembers like, he was too handsy. Then he does have a shot at a comeback, frankly.
I think I differ with you a little bit on that. If you look at somebody like Al Franken, who did something not even nearly as bad as Andrew Cuomo, even he really hasn't been able to mount a political comeback. So I'm not sure if that's the case.
He hasn't tried, though.
It's certainly possible. I mean, it's possible. I don't want to be definitive on this. All I'm saying is I'm agnostic on that point. But there's a couple other things I wanted to mention, too. No, I haven't heard this ever mentioned in any of the mainstream media outlets, but during COVID, he cut Medicaid. He cut health care during a pandemic. So for anybody to say anything about how wonderful he's been on COVID with the nursing home stuff and this, I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. And then also, on one of the most important issues to me, he was beyond atrocious. And that issue is corruption. So he set up the Moreland Commission, which was supposed to look into corruption and investigate it. And then the committee started looking into his allies and him, and then he immediately disbanded. Which, I mean, that says everything right there. I mean, it's like, do it against other people, but not against me. And then Cuomo's right-hand man, his executive deputy secretary, and his campaign manager in 2014, this guy went down for $320,000 in bribes. A federal jury convicted this guy. So, I mean, that's like old school mafia-style politics. I'm allowed to say that because I'm Italian, so I can attack them on those grounds. So, yeah, it's Krystal, he's just a mess. And, good riddance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and actually there's more to
and I'll get to them in my monologue.
You're going to talk about that
Correct.
more in your monologue. One thing that did give me a little bit of personal satisfaction was New York Times, I think we have this tear sheet, dug into his book sales. And remember, this dude got $5 million to write this terrible book, American Crisis, Leadership Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic. There was a bidding war to get the rights to this book, to be his publisher. And even before all of the scandals got picked up by the mainstream media, the sales were pathetic. fewer than 50,000 copies, which again, this book, they put so many millions of dollars, not just in his pocket, but also to promote this thing. This dude was getting free press all over the place on his brother's show and everywhere else. And still everyone was like, we don't have any interest in this book.
How many books did you and Saagar sell?
I don't know exactly the numbers, to be honest with you, but
was it more than him?
It was more than him. It was more than him.
I love that. That's just the perfect cherry on top for the end of this story.
I did take a little personal satisfaction.
Oh my God, you and Saagar should be.
Thank you guys.
That's
appreciate
phenomenal.
that. But yeah, and now there's questions of like, I guess he got $3 million of the advance, and the other 2 are supposed to be forthcoming. There's question over whether he's gonna. Usually there are clauses that they can kind of
hit
like
a number.
Not that you have to hit a number, but if it's something like if your actions, bring shame upon the company, that's not the language, but it's something like that, then they cannot give you the rest of it. So questions over whether he's going to get that or not. And then the last piece we have for you here, as you mentioned before, we already know his executive assistant, the one who says that he reached under her blouse and grabbed her breast, she is suing, has filed a criminal complaint. And Lindsey Boylan, who was another aide, who also is the one that they went to extraordinary lengths in cahoots with the leadership of the Human Rights Campaign and with the leadership of Time's Up, an organization that is supposed to be dedicated to supporting victims of sexual assault. So he engaged in a cover-up and an entire campaign to smear Lindsey Boylan. So she also is planning to sue him. So not a happy future looking like for Mr. Andrew Cuomo. And meanwhile, his brother continues to be on vacation because of his birthday, or so he says.
I think that says it all, Krystal. I think that says it all.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.